Zorn Mamdali, Spanberger, Cheryl, and of course, Jay Jones. This article is pretty much summing up just their colossal sweeping victory. Anti-whites came out in droves to vote for them. And the one that is really shy, I told you the other night that if the Republicans lost here in Virginia, it should have been a dunk on the governorship, because Spanberger is nuts. She's ugly. She is stupid, and she has argued that her and her followers, in my opinion, if I didn't hear it right, you'll have to go listen to yourself for yourself, should be violent. It's going to take violence. She had nobody turning out to her rallies. But the Republican Party, diseased with anti-whiteism, thinking, therefore, that the concerns of white people are only legitimate if non-white people are expressing them, decided to go with the absolute box of rocks that was Earl Sears. She had been the lieutenant governor. She was even more uninspiring than Spanberger. Couldn't have been dumber. Couldn't have been uglier. It was just she was black. And what good did that do? It never does any good. You had the NAACP come out and endorse Spanberger. And then all the cucks, because their heads were up their asses, they were thinking, what? The NAACP isn't going to be able to endorse Spanberger because our candidate is black and that candidate is not. And then when the NAACP says, we're going with the anti-white candidate, the more anti-white candidate. And Earl Sears is less anti-white than Spanberger. So it's perfectly consistent with our understanding of the world, which seems to continue working out every time beautifully, doesn't it? So no one went out to vote for Earl Sears. But the one that was the big shocker was Jay Jones, because he is now the Attorney General, the chief law enforcement of the state of Virginia. So out of all of these anti-whites that were running, and of course they're anti-white on both sides, Republican and Democrat, but of all of them, this guy's the most anti-white. This guy, in text conversation, had a beef with House Speaker Todd Gilbert, who's a Republican and a supporter of the Second Amendment. Jay Jones, oppositional to your right to self-defense. He doesn't want you to be able to defend yourself. He wants to take away that right that your creator or nature has given you. So he said of the House Speaker, quote, 3 people, 2 bullets. Gilbert, the House Speaker in Virginia, Hitler, and Pol Pot. Gilbert gets 2 bullets to the head. This is now the chief law enforcement officer of Virginia. They are going to kill you all. Anti-whiteism continued. The only reason why we haven't been completely murdered in South Africa is because the rest of the West, all the white people, therefore, would get real nervous about anti-whiteism in our countries. So every time that the anti-white terroristic slaughter and rape, ritualistic gang rape and slaughter of our people happen in South Africa, every time it gets a little higher than its average, which is, it's my opinion, of course, always happening, the government of the U.S., the government, et cetera, of some other Western country steps in and says, you better quiet that down a little bit. You better back it off a little bit. Go back to the normal level of slaughtering white people, white erasing them biologically from the country. That won't last. There'll be no civilization to come in and say, don't do that where you live. Once the US and Canada and et cetera have become anti-white enough to not be able to stop it. No alien civilization is going to come in. People like Jay Jones then went on to say this, quote, spoiler, put Gilbert in the crew with the two worst people you know, and he still receives both bullets every time, close quote. What do you think he would do to you? Gilbert, House Speaker Gilbert, was an elected representative. You have to expect infinitely higher standards from people who are going to be in public service, but especially higher standards from them when they are a delegate like Jay Jones and law enforcement officer of the state now. There can't even be a moment of, oh, I was just angry. Oh, I was just angry. And then I said all of my opponents had to die. That was an off moment. He then went on to say, in response to the question about, do you really want Gilbert's wife and children dead as well? He wrote back, quote, yes. I've told you this before. Only when people feel pain personally do they move on policy. Then he went on to say, quote, I'd piss on their graves, close quote. Anti-whiteism is infernal. It's all about victimizing. It's not about communism. It's not about Marxism. It's not about wokeism. It's not about socialism. All of these things are attendant subsets. It's all about hating the white race. And we have watched in the United States, to speak to the tactic of Fuentes and others, a country that complained about Jews working together for generation after generation. And now we're at the point where the chief law enforcement officer of the Commonwealth of Virginia is saying, kill the opposition, kill this Gilbert, kill his wife and children, I'll piss on their graves. How much longer do you want to persist in that stupidity? It's an honest question. Do you actually care about us? Or what is more important, that you have that scapegoat so that you don't have responsibility and have to face this ugliness of anti-whiteism? If he believes, which he does here, that people have to feel pain to the point of being murdered and their wives being murdered and their children being murdered to get a change in policy. And what's the change in policy? Well, he wasn't anti-white enough. Gilbert wasn't anti-white enough. So he, his wife, and children deserve to die, according to those text messages by Jay Jones, elected chief law enforcement officer in the state of Virginia. He's not the only anti-white that feels that way. If they feel that way about this guy, Gilbert, how is he going to feel about you? What kind of pain will he feel fine inflicting on you to get you to be less or more anti-white, to get you to be less of a heretic to anti-whiteism? How did he get into office? Anti-white, non-whites. 90% of blacks plus in the state of Virginia voted for him and Spanberger. So I thought, though, for example, that blacks, they were going to they were going to look at Sears and they were going to say, well, she's black, and so no, these people are anti-white. These people that voted for Spanberger want anti-white conclusions. 70% of Hispanics, 70% almost of Asians voted for Spanberger and Jay Jones. There's no competing. You need only a fraction of the white population to put monsters like that over the top. Another interesting point about the demographic breakdown is that the young, the Zoomers who are supposed to be so super based, voted for the Democrats, Spanberger and Jay Jones. I know that some people now are looking and they're saying, oh, it was tons of women. Most of the females that voted Democrat in Virginia were young. And the older they got, in other words, you're going back in the generations, the less they were inclined to vote for hardcore anti-whiteism. And you have, as is the case in every election for my entire life, more of the white guys voting against the more radical anti-whiteism of all age groups, including the young. That's how they got into office. You can't win with demographics like this in politics. Demographics is destiny. So demographic or politics and violence, voting and violence are not going to take us to the arrest of our victimization. Installing people, as fanciful as it sounds, having people take over the Republican Party, having people take over Harvard, having people take over the CIA, as fanciful and ridiculous as that sounds, even if you wanted to grant that you could have somebody get into power at the head of the CIA who wasn't as anti-white as the rest of the CIA, what material does he have to work with? If he's going to be working with human beings, you're going to be working with people who are anti-white to various degrees. The only strategy is to overcome the social morality of the West, which is the anti-white immoral imperative. We are gifted a respite with Donald Trump, the anomaly Donald Trump. And everything else, as far as anti-whiteism is concerned, is still on track. We've got to make the most of it. Because people like, who knows, Jay Jones might decide, I got to go. I got to feel pain to change my policy, not be so much of a heretic to anti-whiteism. He'll have the power to do it. You think he'll trump up some charges? I mean, now that phrase really has a new meaning to it since they trumped up so many charges on Trump. You think he'll trump up some charges? Trump up some investigations? If not him, the next one. Stop complaining about non-white groups. We're running out of time.